Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Glad to have you along today. Thanks a lot for giving this a 5-star review and a written review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you get an opportunity to do it, it's always helpful to the operation here. We're grateful that you do that and let other people know about the podcast. You have helped this thing grow by leaps and bounds with your support over the years. We're so thankful. And we also can't do it without your support of our sponsors. And the fact that we have great sponsors in the podcast means everything to the operation. So if you enjoy listening to the podcast, if you don't mind rating it, and if you don't mind supporting great sponsors like our title sponsor, John Ruhlman. John has been with us now for a few years, and he is absolutely the best when you're looking for the best prices and the best coverage in health insurance. usmedicalplan.com is his website. Now, all you need to do is set aside, let's call it a half an hour. Reach out, usmedicalplan.com, or call 877-410-4321 and tell them what you're paying right now and what you think about your coverage right now. Or maybe you have some questions. You're just not really happy with your current health insurance situation. They'll talk you through your options. And here's the thing. At US Medical Plan, they know 100 different private health insurance companies. So they're going to get you the best possible price and never going to skimp on coverage. I know a lot of people think, well, if it's cheaper, it's not going to be as good a coverage. Not true. In fact, what you'll find when you work with US Medical Plan is oftentimes you're paying more. You're paying much more than you should be for health insurance for not as great a coverage. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Well, hey there. Welcome in. It's Friday. Glad to have you along, folks. Hope you're doing well today. It's the official kickoff to the weekend. Hope your week was a good one. I hope your morning is getting started well, or whichever time of day you choose to join the show, whether it's podcasting later. Thanks for watching on the Salem News Channel, listening on great stations all over the country, including some of our brand new affiliates. I'm getting news every day of new affiliates in the morning, and I'm so grateful, including some in Missouri. Those of you in Missouri, particularly today, growing by leaps and bounds in the Midwest and South in particular, which I'm thrilled to read. And my home state, the show me state of Missouri, little treat for you guys specifically. You know, there are only 50 of these people in the country, governors, and only a little over half of them are sane. And I talked to one of the sane ones, a new one, yesterday in his office in Jefferson City, Missouri. Mike Kehoe is his name, and it was a really wide-ranging and fascinating discussion. I want to talk to you a little about it coming up, because these are people, you know, I realize whether or not you live in Missouri, no matter. I mean, you're talking about, there are really 28 sane people running their individual lab experiments called states, and some of them are doing some really important, impressive stuff. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing a few of these people, Sarah Huckabee Sanders chief among them. I tell you what, these Midwestern and red state Southern governors, they are doing some really incredible work. And they're going to make you, if you don't live in one of those states, or you already, you're living in a blue state, you're going to think, maybe I ought to call a mover. And if you live in a red state, you're going to kiss the ground and thank your lucky stars you live there. That's on the way. 855 Stigall is our telephone number today, by the way, if you want to get on the show. This is the day we do Open Line Friday around here. 855-784-4255. I try to keep this tradition alive like Rush Limbaugh used to do it all those many years. On Fridays, he said he'd open the phones and rank amateurs could come in and talk about whatever they wanted. It didn't have to be what was on his mind. I liked that concept, so we try to keep that alive here. You can come on in and talk to me about whatever it is you want to talk about, even if it's something I didn't get to this week or I'm not talking about today, or you just want to add to the conversation. You think I've missed it. You want to bring something to my attention. Today's it, all right? Fast Eddie's standing by. 855-784-4255. Okay, let's get to it. The seashells as you stroll the beach. You know, I've spent many, many summers in the beautiful community of Brigantine, New Jersey. It's one of my favorite places to vacation. Shore towns up and down the coastline of New Jersey. Bruce Springsteen's New Jersey. Speaking of which, did you see Springsteen is going out on concert now? He just launched a new concert tour and apparently spent 10 minutes lecturing the audience about what a rotten, no-good place we are and what a scumbag Trump is. When and I have a lot of conservative friends who are Springsteen fans, who've stood in line when the book came out and wanted the autograph and got the picture framed on the wall. It's a tough thing, I know, because particularly people that are in and around the South Philly, most of Jersey area, they love the boss, particularly if you're of a certain age. Because he used to represent the working man, ironically. That's what's so funny about Bruce Springsteen, the denim and the Born in the USA and the Stone Pony and the Workin' Joe and the beer swilling guy. I don't know what happened to him, but now he sings for millionaires and billionaires. You talk about it, he's like this, he's the court jester. He sings for the oligarchs. I mean, Donald Trump is the most working man Bruce Springsteen president we've had in decades. And he goes out to his concerts where people are paying, I assume, a premium for a ticket. I don't even know what a Springsteen ticket costs. He starts scolding them. And I would guess, I don't know, easily half, maybe more of Springsteen's audience are of a certain age. I would guess the vast majority of them are certainly at or near retirement age. I think that's fair to say. Not to say that if you're not younger, you couldn't enjoy Springsteen, but here's a working class fan base who I would guess a great number of them are Trump voters. I'd be curious to know what the reaction is when you pay a premium to go see a show like that, and the first thing you get is a big lecture about how 77 million people cast a vote for a guy. He goes on a concert tour, sells these tickets, and starts scolding the audience a bit. I guess he figures, well, I got your money, and I don't need your money, so I'm going to say whatever I damn well please. Anyway, I digress. New Jersey's how I got here, and polling in New Jersey says the current governor, Bucky, speaking of blue state governors, Bucky, Phil Murphy, he's underwater. Trump, in New Jersey, dead even. 47 approve, 47 disapprove. So Trump has better approval numbers, I'm saying, in New Jersey than Bucky, the Democrat governor. And it's really likely that there's going to be a Republican governor in New Jersey soon, would be my bet. Now, granted, I know Republican governors in New Jersey, that's sort of loaded proposition because you're talking about guys like Christie and people like Christine Todd Whitman before that. And so I understand. But nevertheless, I think political fortunes are changing in New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen's home. Spent a lot of time in South Jersey, up and down that coastline. Walking the beaches, sitting in my beach chair, looking out over the ocean. Now, I can tell you that in all my strolls up and down the beaches of South Jersey over the many summers that my family and I have vacationed there, I have never seen a shell formation spell out numbers or words. I've never seen a natural... I see shells wash up, take a nice sunrise stroll on the beach, beautiful morning. I do not recall ever seeing shells wash up on the beach and spell perfect letters or numbers. James Comey, the former director of the FBI, posted on Instagram yesterday, and you probably saw this if you're on social media or if you were, paying any attention to the news last night, because this sort of broke wide open late yesterday afternoon. He posted on Instagram, I found a strange shell formation in the sand. By the way, quite a life James Comey's carved out for himself. I don't know what he does. He just apparently strolls beaches all day long. So he posts a picture of shells in the sand, and the shells clearly spell out the numbers 86. 86. And then next to 86 is 47. 8647. Now, James Comey does nothing by accident. He's a gaslighter extraordinaire. He's a total scumbag. This is a guy that will stare you right in the eye and lie directly to you. James Comey, for me, he represents a lot of things, not the least of which Crossfire Hurricane and trying to rope-a-dope the entire country into believing Donald Trump was a Russian asset, and that the only reason Trump won an election is because he was compromised by the Russians, and he was constantly trying to subvert and frame Donald Trump's campaign and his initial presidency as some sort of Russian collusion plot, and was, as you know, we can go through all the list of horribles from James Comey. I'm not going to relitigate all that, but here's what I remember most about James Comey, and I will never forget it. I think I've even shared that on this show before. I will never forget July of the year Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were running against one another. It was July of that election year. And I remember James Comey was finally going to come out as the director of the FBI with a full and complete report on what they'd found about Mrs. Clinton and her server. And I remember, I think it was even July 4th, if memory serves, because I think I was waiting at the Philadelphia International Airport to pick up some family to go down to the aforementioned shore for the entire week. And I was sitting there with this unbelievable anticipation, and I'm not really sure why. I guess that was back when I was still naive enough to believe that James Comey was a Boy Scout. And that James Comey didn't see red states and blue states. He saw the United States, and he was truth, justice, and the American way. I actually bought that crap from a guy like him. I bought a lot of crap from a lot of people. I'll admit it. I'm man enough to admit when I'm duped. But he was supposedly above the law, Republican adjacent, and all of this business. So, all right. I waited until the report for Hillary came out, and her server and her smashed BlackBerries. Remember, she was communicating privately on off-the-grid servers, communicating privately on BlackBerry phone technology at the time with her staff that she shouldn't have been, and it was disclosed. And even Obama told her, would you stop keeping private data on private servers as our State Department representative? The Secretary of State, stop it. Stop doing that. Even Obama allegedly told her to stop it. She didn't stop it. And then when they finally decided they were going to investigate her and round up her stuff, she smashed all the stuff with a hammer. Got bleach bit, she tried to erase all the stuff she was doing privately, effectively is what she was doing. We know the Chinese hacked it. Lord knows what she was selling, what kind of information was exposed to foreign actors. Who knows? But anyway, Comey comes out, and he has this press conference that's, at first, it sounds devastating. I mean, it sounds like he's about to really unload on Hillary Clinton. He lays out all of these things that she's done. And I remember sitting in the car listening to Comey thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds terrible. He's about to recommend charges. He's about to say we found criminal evidence that Mrs. Clinton had been engaged in it. And this is just, a couple months before the election at this point versus Donald Trump. And everybody was curious how it was going to go. And then after laying out this lengthy list of things that Mrs. Clinton had done that was clearly evading the law, he says, but we here at the FBI can find no way to reasonably conclude that Mrs. Clinton intended to commit these crimes. I'm paraphrasing, but that was effectively it. We don't think any reasonable judge or jury would think she intended to commit crimes. That was how he concluded. We found her criminally liable. We found her engaged in criminal activity. But we here at the FBI don't think any court of law would actually find her guilty of anything. We don't think anybody reasonable would think so. So we're just not going to, we're going to drop it. We're going to leave it at that. Now, Mrs. Clinton still blames him to this day for that press conference as the reason she lost to Donald Trump. The rest of us know we never got justice with Mrs. Clinton. But it doesn't stop there. I've got more to say on it in just a minute. Okay. Just a couple of things on my mind about James Comey. 8647. As he's walking down the beach, he posts a photo of some shells that have formed in the sand, he said. And they spell out 8647. Now, the second I saw this yesterday afternoon, I was in transit, riding along, wasn't driving, thankfully, so I was in the passenger seat, and I saw this pop up on social media. 8647. Now, Fast Eddie, you're Italian. I'm having a little fun with that, but I'm not Italian. But the first thing I thought of when I saw 8647 posted by James Comey without any context and without any commentary, I started seeing it pop up in my social media feed. I immediately knew what that meant. You?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Is there any question? I mean, sincerely, I'm being cute about the Italian thing. But I mean, that's nomenclature that's been around a long time. I think that was in my Bugs Bunny cartoons. 86 this, 86 that. Doesn't everybody understand what 86 is?
I think so, yes. I asked about 5 different people yesterday after this happened. I'm like, do you know what that means? Like, yeah. Every one of them said yes. So
there were some people that acted like they didn't know what it was. I mean, yeah. I saw a few, not many, but a few were like, I had no idea. What? I saw that and I thought, how strange. I don't know what that means. I instantly knew. I'm 86 this or 86 that. When you say 86 something, apparently it's restaurant nomenclature for cancel. Somebody orders a steak and eggs, and somebody does 86 the eggs. The guy's changed his mind or whatever. 86 is also nomenclature for, 8-foot length accommodating a standard casket. 6 feet indicates depth for burial. Some people say drive them 8 miles out, bury them 6 feet deep, whatever. But 86 means cancel, kill, scrap, done. Everybody understands 86. And then, of course, 47. I mean, remember Maxine Waters when she used to go out there the first time Trump was president? Impeach 45. She would call him his number, 45. So when I saw 8647 spelled out in seashells, of course I knew what he was saying. Now, James Comey wants you to believe, what? Why? I had no idea. I thought I was just posting something interesting. He says yesterday, and I kid you not, after he's caught and the thing blows up, he was trying to be cute. He never thought, I guess, people would pay attention to him, or he wanted this kind of attention, probably the latter. I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me. But I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. The FBI director does not know 86. He admits he knew it was a political message. So even in his, little old me? Posting something about murder? Why, I never. Shut the hell up, you gaslighting fool. You knew exactly what you were doing. Everyone knew what you were doing. And you acting like now, I didn't understand what 8647 meant. You were the former director of the FBI. You supposedly prosecuted the worst dudes in our midst, who I guarantee used 86 and much, much worse. And Lord knows you know a thing or two about surveillance, James Comey, so you knew what you meant. Well, I took it down because I deplore violence of any kind. Well, I have more evidence. Since I'll do a criminal investigation of my own here and lay it out, this is well-established nomenclature by the left, as a matter of fact. I have the receipts. I will share them with you coming up on the Stigall Show. All right. James Comey, 8647, says he has no idea what that means. That's interesting. I just, out of curiosity, when I saw that he said yesterday, I would never, when I posted that, saw an interesting shell formation in the sand, I would never have thought that meant what it meant. So I went to check, as any good talk show host would. I'm not even a journalist, but I decided to engage in some journalism. And I went back and I said, has this never existed before? Has 8647 never happened? He just found a shell formation and thought it interesting, admitting he knew it was political, a reference to Trump and 47. So if he knew it was political, knowing that 47 was the political element of it, let's just give him that. All right? He knew that it meant president, 47, Trump. So what did he think 86 meant? If we're giving him the benefit of the doubt, what did he think it meant? Well, we know he knew what it meant, and here's how we know he knew what it meant. This from Newsmax back in April. Left using 8647 symbol for violence against Trump and Musk. A literal story on it. The first one to pop up of a few was a Newsmax story. Senator Mike Lee of Utah is calling on Americans across the country to denounce the use of 8647 by protesters, a phrase some allege is coded calls for violence against Donald Trump after anti-Trump and anti-Elon Musk rallies broke out in several states. The Daily Post reports that rallies against the current administration were held Saturday, and again we're talking about back in early April now, were held Saturday in multiple states with demonstrations holding signs reading, "We are not okay, hands off the USA 8647. The phrase 8647 has sparked controversy over its potential meaning and intent. According to the Post, 8647 is being used by some as a subtle expression of protest, while others believe widely that the understood slang of get rid of is what 86 actually means, the number 47, of course, representing Trump. The implication is that the term is a veiled reference to call for Trump's assassination. So, that is the literal news story, couple months old almost, on 8647 and what it means. So, that's to just establish James Comey pretending he had no idea what it meant is a bald-faced lie. Now, what do we do about it? is the next question. Where do we go from here? Well, Molly Hemingway has an interesting theory. I like it. She said yesterday on X, if Comey is interviewed about his call to assassinate President Trump and he repeats his lie that he didn't know what he was doing, let's make sure to also charge him with lying to FBI agents. Also, do the interview in conjunction with an armed raid at 5 a.m. at his home for old time's sake. Wouldn't you love that? Wouldn't you love to see this rat bastard get a little bit of his own and have his loved ones rousted out of bed in the early morning hours of the pre-dawn raid of his home? Maybe have him put in shackles and leg irons at the airport like they did to Peter Navarro? Why would James Comey do something like this? What would be his motive to suggest a kill on Donald Trump, a murder? 8647. And that's what it was, and he knows what it was. Does he have motive? Oh, sure he does. I mean, look at it. Trump ordered the declassification of his little Crossfire Hurricane investigation. The FBI delayed the release. That was back in 2021. Trump signed a memorandum requiring immediate declassification of most materials with some FBI redactions preserved. That was back in March. In April, 700 pages of redacted Crossfire Hurricane records were sent to Congress, some of which were released to the media. Does he have motive to stir up this idea of killing Donald Trump? Why kill the man? Why not just wait for another election? There must be some urgency. There must be some real concern that and I guess Butler wasn't enough. I mean, we all know that was allowed to happen in Butler. It didn't work out. They've been trying it since his campaign. They tried it 2 or 3 times during his campaign. Damn it, they keep missing, like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. And, of course, we know, and it's been well documented, and we've talked about it here, assassination culture. This kind of sickness, this sick message, this is Comey's call to arms to mentally deranged and ill people in this country to murder a sitting president. It's clear, and he'd love to see it happen. He'd love to see some mentally deranged person do his dirty work because of all the reasons I just laid out. Whatever it is that I'm sure Kash Patel and probably Pam Bondi, and remember, Trump continues to back the work of Pam Bondi. Is she getting closer on him? Are we talking about indictments against James Comey soon? Maybe. Trump continues to back what's going on over at DOJ. Is Comey starting to get nervous? Maybe he should be. But what we do know is he's trying to tap into assassination culture. Back in April, early April, Carol Markowitz, our friend over at the New York Post, wrote this: Democrats lit the assassination culture fuse, and now their silence equals violence. How much longer will Democrats accept their supporters' escalating calls for violence? The weekend hands-off protests were wholly expected, but Saturday's demonstration featured an undercurrent of violent rhetoric. In New York, a man dressed up as Luigi of Super Mario Brothers to honor Luigi Mangione, the alleged murderer of healthcare executive Brian Thompson, carried a sign calling for Trump to be deposed. In Michigan, in Oregon, and elsewhere, grinning marchers wore shirts, carried placards emblazoned with the number 8647. One 8647 protester stood right alongside Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison in Minneapolis. Hands off or heads off, read the message on a life-size guillotine paraded about in Denver that same weekend. Of course, we have a montage of leftists who tread in this rhetoric. Go ahead, fellas. Roll it.
This MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
They are threatening political violence, and they are attacking our democracy.
These Republicans and others are creating an environment of political violence. They are putting Americans at risk.
Democrats have never endorsed political violence, but he will go to a rally and he will endorse it. This is the equivalent of playing with a loaded gun and then it backfiring on you.
Yeah. And there are endless examples of Democrats suggesting violence, and it goes all the way back to us. I mean, you know them. Up to as late as this week. What went on in Newark at the ICE facility? Give me 2054. Listen to this from the Newark mayor. 2054.
We need your support. It's a very dangerous time we are in. And I don't have much. All I have is a rock and a rag. And I don't have a huge sword and a whole bunch of armor, but we fight the giant, and all I got is a rock and a rag and a couple of smooth stones. That's really all I need. What I take from that is that we're going to use those stones to knock these people down on the sides. When we knock them down the eye level, then we're going to take the very weapon they was going to use to do us and do them with that very weapon. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. All right. That's good. You get it. When we knock them down to eye level, then we're going to take the very weapon they was going to use to do us in and do them in with that very weapon, said the mayor of Newark just this week. Assassination culture. Many believe killing and destruction are justified. Sure they do. I've got more thoughts on this a little later in the show. I've got a whole bunch of examples, as a matter of fact. I was thinking about it last night. But this piece from Focus on the Family, in 1995, Pope John Paul described the struggle between the culture of life and the culture of death. While the culture of death is as old as humanity, John Paul listed some issues that exacerbate it in our modern world, including the eclipse of the sense of God, the loss of the sense of human dignity and value, and the rejection of belief in objective truth. He wrote that these lead to whatever is opposed to life itself, such as any type of murder, genocide, abortion, euthanasia, or willful self-destruction, whatever violates the integrity of the human person. As John Paul explained, a large part of contemporary society looks sadly like that humanity which Paul describes in his letter to the Romans, where he describes society's downward spiral. Men suppress the truth, don't give thanks to God or acknowledge him, become foolish, carry out evil deeds, and approve of others who do the same. Biblical. From Paul in his letter. John Paul also called the church to stand against our culture of death by presenting the gospel of God's love for man. Every day we hear news, they write, that illustrates our culture of death, including the violence and destruction of BLM and Antifa, attacks on churches and pro-life groups, Israeli citizens murdered, kidnapped, sexually assaulted, the destruction of millions of preborn children, as well as the mutilation and damage of children from transgender medical interventions. It's a disturbing development, they write, this culture of death, of course. And it goes on and on. It's a great read, and it's an important read to understand. Those supporting violence and death need biblical truth and grace, they conclude. Christianity offers hope that our culture of death will be overcome by the gospel of life. You know, there are a lot of people that I really dislike deeply in politics, deeply. And I can tell you, I know exactly what 86 means, and I can tell you I would never, and you can comb through 20 years of social media posts and you're never going to see anything flirting with or close to the notion of me suggesting anyone in public life should be killed for their point of view, no matter how loathsome. This is the Stigall Show. Let's go to Rodney out there in PA to kick off the open line Friday session of today's show. 855-STIGALL is how you reach me. Good morning, Rodney. How are you, sir?
Great, Chris. Thanks for taking my call. What I'd like to say is, like the judge out west, this mayor in Newark, so many of them, they think they can break the law as if there's some kind of immunity. Well, I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. I'm 64 years old. In my life, I've seen two Pennsylvania attorney generals go to jail. We had the Kids for Cash. Two judges went to jail up here. I don't know where they're getting this idea that they could break the law and that they're immune.
Are you suggesting, because I've had some people message me on X this morning that have said, I think what I hear you saying, you want to see James Comey in cuffs this morning?
Well, James Comey is an idiot for what he did. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, what the ramifications, but I certainly think that, like the judge out west who thinks she's immune, Anybody that's breaking the law, and then they flout that. I don't know if you remember Chivarella up here was one of the judges, and he was going to he had a plea bargain to get a couple years, and he ran his mouth, and the judge gave him 27 years. Like they think that they're immune to this stuff, and they are not.
Rodney, thank you. That's the thing that I think I hear voters in this country, Trump voters in this country, listeners and callers to the show, people who message and email me. I hear that consistent theme more than any other from this audience, and that is they are so sick and tired of a two-tiered system of justice. The idea that we put a guy like Peter Navarro in leg irons at the airport because he believed he couldn't be compelled to testify before Congress because he believed he had the confidentiality of the presidency to maintain and a constitutional right to do so, so he refused to testify, and goons were sent to the airport to put him in leg irons. Peter Navarro went away to prison for this. And a guy like James Comey continues to skate for quite literally calling for the assassination of Donald Trump. And that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is not small. Look, I understand the temptation some might have to say, you people will just jump on anything. You'll just jump. This is a stupid post on social media. This is no big deal. No, we are in a time in this country where people think it is okay to walk up to a healthcare CEO, a health insurance CEO in broad daylight in New York City and plug him in the back and assassinate him. And we lionize. Much of the culture lionizes a guy like that. They celebrate him. They make shirts and propaganda paraphernalia about the guy. Call him dreamy. It's sick. It's sick, and James Comey knows it's sick. We live in a time when a former president running for president, now current president, was nearly killed within millimeters. A bullet whizzed past his head, grazing his ear, because he was allowed to be almost killed in a field in Pennsylvania. 150 yards, a guy takes a shot at his head. That was allowed to happen, and it was supposed to hit him. It was supposed to kill him that day. It didn't. Thank God. Warren is in Fort Worth. Warren, I'm glad you called. Welcome to Open Line Friday. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. What's on your mind today?
Well, I'm a retired vet, and I go to the Fort Worth VA often for medical treatments. And I was up there on the 28th, and I was hearing a lot about the Donald Trump portrait not being up on the wall. So I turned around and looked, and there it was, a scowling photo of the president. And I was like, that's not very complimentary, but okay, at least it's there. And the other day, I went up there for a follow-up exam, and I looked at the wall, and it wasn't there. And I asked some of the gentlemen that were volunteers there, I said, what happened to his portrait? And they said, some woman defaced it. And I said, inside the VA, somebody defaced that. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, what happened to her? And they said, well, she was arrested. So I didn't know if that was hearsay or if that was true or not. So I came home, and I was looking it up on the Internet. And I saw nothing about it, no report about it or anything, but I thought that's strange. And I just thought I'd mention it, that if that did happen, there wasn't anything said about it. And I think it's pretty...
Yeah. Warren, I got you. Thank you. Not surprising. Not surprising, again, in the culture we're in. And who knows what she wrote on it. Kathy Griffin holding the bloody severed head of Trump once upon a time. This is the Stigall Show. Everybody talking about the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Balance of Nature says, welcome to the party. They've been working hard, producing a vibrant nutritional supplement second to none for many, many years before it became fashionable. So many other people use chemicals and additives for their supplements, but Balance of Nature is made solely from whole food ingredients. And while other methods sacrifice nutritional quality for the sake of profits and volume, Balance of Nature, they use an advanced cold process, a vacuum cold process. It includes freeze-drying their fruits and vegetables into a fine powder, and so that allows them to retain as much nutritional value as possible. And they don't cut corners, for volume or other things, as maybe some other supplements do. Balance of Nature packs a real nutritional punch, and that's the whole reason to take Balance of Nature. Get the most nutrition for the sake of your good health. And if you use my name, Chris, as your promo code right now, you'll save 35% off your order, and they're even going to ship it to you for free. Plus, a money-back guarantee if you're not happy. Call them, 800-2468-751. Use the discount code Chris. Once again, don't forget the discount code Chris. this for that big 35% off savings plus free shipping. Order online, balanceofnature.com. Excellence in dentistry. That's what you're going to get at Williamsburg Dental. My friend Bob Spinato is back on the phone. He's in Broomall, just off the Blue Route. And with 2 new associates, now you can expand and offer more hours, maybe evening hours, possibly weekends, Bob.
Yeah, one of the things that I told them from early on when they started with me was the value of not only their own time, but other people's times. And they run on a similar schedule that I do. If you've got a 1 o'clock appointment, you're in their chair at 1 o'clock. And it's something that across the board at Williamsburg Dental, we really pride ourselves on, whether it's an appointment with the hygienist or whether it's an appointment with one of our doctors. The other thing is we now have some expanded hours in the evenings, and even there's some discussion about opening again on some Saturdays for services.
Yeah, but not you. You're fishing. You're not kidding anybody. It's not you going to be working on Saturday. Come on, Stu.
Well, I'm in my 33rd year, and it should be the young guns.
That's right. You've earned it. You've earned it.
I feel like I have. Thank you.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Glad to have you along, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you into this Friday edition of the Chris Stigall Show. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening or watching on the Salem News Channel or on great radio stations all over the country, thanks for being here. You can always catch me online at chrisstigall.com. Wherever you stream your podcast, subscribe to the Chris Stigall Show so you don't miss it if, in fact, you want to get caught up or go back and listen to it. Got the full podcast's video version at the snc.tv site if you ever want to watch it online after the show. There's a lot of ways to catch the show. And, of course, my 3 times a week newsletter, The Harumph Society, I got a new edition coming out today. Go to chrisstigall.com. Follow me there. Follow social media posts if you'd like to on X, Instagram, even TikTok, even Chinese-owned TikTok I'm trying now. And having some success with it, as a matter of fact, I must say. And then today, it's Open Line Friday. We keep that tradition alive just like the late, great Rush Limbaugh used to do. We try to keep that tradition going by opening the phones and allowing you to call in and talk about whatever you want. Because Monday through Thursday, we're busy around here, and I don't always get a chance to get to everybody who wants to call in and talk about what they want to talk about. So today's your day. Whatever it is, whatever's on your mind, whether it's something I'm talking about or not, there's room for you today to come in here at 855-STIGALL. All right? And I hope that you will. Last night, I guess it was early evening, as this news about James Comey posting what was, in essence, winking, nodding, flirting with the notion of assassination of Donald Trump in his seashell post 8647. Everybody knows what it is, even though Comey pretends, I took it down because I never in a million years, I knew it was political, but I never would have thought it was violence. So most of the presidential delegation, of course, is over in the Middle East, and they're asleep because it's like the middle of the night there. So most of them don't even know what's going on. Now, Peter Doocy, who reports for Fox News, and this is cut 2068, Paul, if you'd have it ready, 2068. So these guys that are in the presidential press corps that are traveling with Trump and their team over to the Middle East, they're all up doing their evening reporting for, us stateside. So it's early evening. But remember, everybody, including, I assume, Trump and the whole presidential delegation for the most part that are in Qatar and all these places, they're sound asleep. So it's the middle of the night, and most of them have no idea that James Comey has spelled out in seashells a wink to the president's assassination. I guess Steve Doocy is up, and he's because he's got to be up in the middle of the night to do his reports for Fox. He's trying to get somebody to wake up in their hotel room with the presidential delegation to give him some kind of reaction to the former FBI director who Trump fired, suggesting Trump should be assassinated. And it doesn't come for some time. But you can tell Doocy's just out of his mind here because he's, like the rest of us, incredulous. He tries to be pretty straightforward and straight-laced and tries not to editorialize too much. He'd kind of had it with this.
The real head-scratcher about this very serious topic is that James Comey wants us to believe, and we have this photo here, that he saw a cool, these are his words, cool shell formation on my beach walk. And the cool shell formation, according to the person who used to be in charge of the FBI, shows shells in the shape of 8647. 86 is common restaurant lingo, of course, for denying service to somebody. But after about 30 seconds of Googling, you can see that a good chunk of people all around the world also associate 86 with meaning to kill somebody. An old mob saying, basically, you take somebody 8 miles outside of town and then you put them 6 feet in the ground. James Comey, again, a guy who has prosecuted mobsters, apparently had no idea that this was a thing. He deleted the original post with the cool shell formation, and he writes, I posted a picture earlier of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, and I took the post down. That's not enough for Donald Trump Jr. He says, just James Comey casually calling for my dad to be murdered. This is who the Dem media worships. Demented. And Kash Patel, as we were coming to air, the new FBI director, one of Comey's successors, is saying that he is in touch with the Secret Service, and they are going to be sending Secret Service agents to talk to James Comey about what exactly he was getting at. Patel says, we are aware of the recent tweet by former FBI Director James Comey directed at President Trump. We are in communication with the Secret Service and Director Curran. Primary jurisdiction is with the Secret Service on these matters, and we, the FBI, will provide all necessary support. This is, of course, a president who has had 2 assassination attempts on him within the last 365 days.
That's correct. And Ducey went on to say, of course he knows what 86 means. He was the former director of the FBI. And we're supposed to believe he just saw this shell display and snapped a photo of it. Very confused because don't you typically, when you post on social media, if in fact you have social media accounts, don't you typically, you see something you're confused by and you immediately rush to social media to post a photo of it? I know I do. Hey, I don't understand what I'm seeing. I don't understand the context of this. This is weird. Look, everyone. It's stupid. Everyone knows it's stupid. The question is, Secret Service, did they go knocking on his door? Should we do a pre-dawn raid? Does James Comey belong in handcuffs? I sure think so. You know, our friend Seb Gorka, who's just so lights out fantastic, he was invited to sit down and talk to Politico at some function here. It's starting to pick up steam online. Dr. G, who's now part of the counterterrorism unit inside the White House and doing great things, he sat down on the stage with Politico and absolutely dressed them down on this very point, and more broadly, just sort of the malfeasance and the dishonesty of media generally, particularly when you're talking about what this administration is trying to do, save lives, versus what Democrats believe in doing, which is taking life and threatening American lives and even threatening presidents of the United States' lives. Listen to some of Seb here. If
you're a member of Al-Qaeda, you're a terrorist.
How do you know if that they're members of these gangs? What I'm saying
is... You mean
is,
the tattoos, MS-13 on their knuckles doesn't, that doesn't help it? Do you have tattoos of Al-Qaeda?
The tattoo did not say MS-13. I don't want to get into that.
Oh, of course it does. It's just accidents that the 4 symbols represent the letters MS. See, this is why Politico is a joke. This is why you are gutter press and fake news. That those 4 symbols that just happen to comport with the letters MS and the numbers 13 don't, in this case, represent MS-13. You're sitting here live defending a member of MS-13. That's why I regret coming here, because this isn't journalism, this is protecting those who hate America. Shame on you. We are saving lives. Sir. Saving lives. How about Maryland fathers compared to Maryland mothers? Like Rachel Marin, mother of 5, raped and murdered and thrown in a ditch. How about Jocelyn Nungare, age 12, raped a mile from her home and thrown in a ditch? It's strange that Politico doesn't do articles about her, that mother, or that 12-year-old girl. Why is that? Why is the MS-13 guy with the knuckle tattoos more important in terms of due process than the lives of 12-year-old girls brutally raped? It's weird that the priorities shift to defending the member of an FTO, but not the children and the women. Dan Crenshaw told me a story once of a 16-year-old girl who was smuggled across this border. The parents paid $5,000 for her to live in America, the land of milk and honey. She ended up locked in a room in New York, raped by more than a dozen men every day for 18 months until she escaped. She went to Dan Crenshaw's office, and I'm no friend of Dan Crenshaw's, okay? He's still got TDS. And that girl said to him, Please close the border so another girl doesn't have to be raped by 12 strange men every day for 18 months. It's strange that Politico doesn't cover those stories. Could you tell me why?
We have covered.
No, you haven't. You have not covered those stories. I'd like to see the Jocelyn Nungare, Rachel Marin stories in comparison to the Russia collusion garbage. I mean, let's be honest here.
Let's move on.
You have an agenda.
Classic Seb, great stuff. And I'm always kind of stunned, frankly, when they invite people like Seb into arenas like that. And would anybody be surprised that that's the way it concludes? Justice demands accountability, not excuses. The Trump administration is bringing accountability, and the public still demands more. People want to know today, and I'm getting your messages. Why isn't Comey in handcuffs today? Why isn't he in leg irons today? Why isn't Secret Service and the FBI, why aren't they raiding his home this morning? Democrats are unhinged. This is a mania. They're enraged. They're losing their minds because Rasmussen polling continues to show the country still believes Trump has got the country on the right track. Democrat leaders' poll numbers are a complete and utter failure and a joke. Rush himself, Rush Limbaugh, as those of you who know him and listened to him for so long ago, he called the Democrat Party the largest hate group in the country. And he was right then. He's right today. Democrats are a threat. Their media allies are a threat. They fuel division. They fuel destruction at every turn, these people. And those who break the law, whether they're inciting assassination attempts like Comey or rioting. Stephanie Rollins Blake once said in Baltimore during the riots, they need the space to destroy. People like these must be arrested and indicted and tried. Justice demands accountability. Paging Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, boy, we're waiting on you. These people need to be dealt with. This is the Stigall Show. You know, I really hate to belabor this, but I do think it's important. I mean, when the former FBI director is talking about assassination on social media, I think it's a big deal. I just do. I don't think it's a small matter, and I know that there are going to be people that are going to roll their eyes and say, oh, this is no big deal. It's seashells. We're living in an assassination culture. We are seeing the left celebrate assassination and explain away assassination and explain away anti-Semitism. The left is very comfortable with this place of killing, literally murdering people with whom they disagree. This is becoming what the left's options are because they can't win. They have no message. There's nothing they can say to the American people to make the American people want to vote for them. So their only real solution is let's just murder the people who oppose us. All the while, ironically, they shout about Donald Trump being the authoritarian that you should fear. And that's all part of the strategy, isn't it? Because if you say frequently enough, Donald Trump is the one you should fear, why then lunatics who feel like we're out of power and there's nothing we can do to reclaim power because we keep losing electorally, I guess our only option is murder the opposition. And it's okay to murder him because he's Hitler after all, don't you see? This is the former FBI director. It's a big deal. Tulsi Gabbard believes it's a big deal, too. She was on last night, I believe, on Fox, 2067 here, talking about why she thinks James Comey ought to be arrested for this.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do. Any other person with the position of influence that he has, people who take very seriously what a guy of his stature, his experience, and what the propaganda media has built him up to be, I'm very concerned for the president's life. We've already seen assassination attempts. I'm very concerned for his life. And James Comey, in my view, should be held accountable and put behind bars for this.
Remember all these people that have been removed, that Tulsi Gabbard just recently removed, and you saw all of these reprobates, these scumbags inside institutional Washington, all these institutional intelligence people that have been released who are total partisan hacks. The FBI has basically largely melded over the past. Now, you know, at current pace. I believe Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are trying to fix this. I think Tulsi Gabbard and the intelligence community is trying to fix this. But remember that these communities have melded together in what is effectively one big supercharged intelligence gathering operation for politics. The FBI has gotten out of the business of criminal investigations. The FBI used to be federal law enforcement, meaning when someone broke a federal law, they investigated, arrested, and prosecuted someone for breaking laws. They were never meant to be an extension of the Central Intelligence Agency, and that's what they've become. These institutions have become, operationally, they've become collectors of intelligence. Domestically, they're obsessed with domestic political prosecution. So people like Tulsi, people like Pam Bondi, we hope, I'm going to assume, and people like Kash Patel are trying to weed these people out, and it's making them more and more concerned. Trump is exposing more and more of their political activity. More and more people are being let go from the inside. And again, here again, they're afraid. They're very, very afraid of the public exposing them. Doge has done a lot to expose them. And I genuinely believe these people are so afraid and concerned. That's why, with the auto pen, Biden issuing all these blanket pardons, this stuff is being exposed and uprooted, and all of these people are quite literally on the beach, sitting around, twiddling their thumbs, wondering, what are they about to expose here? And again, their fear of being caught. The FBI, here's another story from NBC News yesterday. The FBI has folded the public corruption squad that aided Jack Smith's Trump investigations. The FBI's Washington field office folding its federal public corruption squad, the unit that aided Smith in his special counsel investigation into Donald Trump, all of which he had to drop, including the raiding of Mar-a-Lago. This stuff is being exposed. 86-47, say the seashells on James Comey's post. 86-40. Why? This stuff that, again, I trust Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are uncovering as we speak. And they're playing to assassination culture. Here's two stories from just the last month. FBI says man was planning a mass shooting at Army site in suburban Detroit. 19-year-old man arrested after spending months planning an attack against a U.S. Army site. Then, of course, a Massachusetts man charged in an attempt to assassinate a member of Trump's cabinet. And we know the attempts on Trump's life. We bring in our great friend, Josh Mann. They do fabulous work at The Lion. If you don't know the news site, The Lion, read lion.com. He's the managing editor there. I think this is one of those websites, if you want trust. People ask me all the time, which site do I go to get news I can trust? The Lion is one of those sites, readlion.com. Josh, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to, just to prove that I mean what I say about The Lion and how good it is, you don't want to brag on yourself, so let me brag on you for you, Josh. You guys just cleaned up at a recent awards ceremony. Your work was put out there to be judged with your compatriots in journalism from all over the country, right?
That's right. I'm really proud of the team. We brought home 11 awards, an award of merit for the publication as a whole, but also our podcasts and media brought home 4 awards themselves. And so that's, a growing and expanding part of readlion.com. The Lion Week in Review won an audio and video podcast. And I think the sky's the limit. We're just getting started. But we're certainly really pleased every year to put ourselves up in these award shows. We've only been around 3.5 years. And so we've grown a lot. We've won over 20 awards, and we hope just to continue to do great things and better and greater and more. That's what our goal is.
Well, I'm proud to call you guys friends, and I do some work with you guys as well, and I'm thrilled to do it. It's just an honor to work alongside pros that are really committed to journalism. You genuinely are, and one of the things that I know you pride yourselves on writing things that are outside of maybe even what you would see in traditional news sites. Culture stuff is really important to you guys at The Lion.
That's right. We're not ashamed of our Christian worldview, and so we do bring a Christian perspective. But you'll find general news, and so some of the ways that you see that come across is we're eager to share stories about great things happening in faith and family, Christian education, for example. So alongside of Trump's trip to the Middle East, you might read a story about a Catholic Votech school that's opening up just south of Boston. You might read a story about a Christian Teacher of the Year winner. You might read a story, also stories that you'll read elsewhere about males competing under the guise of female, these trans-identifying athletes who are taking medals from young girls and women. We're covering those kinds of issues as well, in addition to all of the important policy, government, and even things around the world happening, not just to Christians, but to freedom-loving Americans.
Let's talk about school choice specifically. It is a subject you guys cover a lot at the Lion, readlion.com. Josh, the big, beautiful bill that's being debated right now on Capitol Hill, my understanding is tucked in that is some help for families, parents and families, and school choice. Do you know the details about that? I know the bill's not been released or voted on, so it's hard to know from day to day. Things are always changing. What have you heard? What do you know? Because there are a lot of people in this country that would love school choice. They say, I just can't afford an option right now. Is this a reality, and could it help?
It is a reality, and it very well could help. And so the Ways and Means Committee, which just advanced this bill, it's a budget reconciliation bill. You're right. Tucked into that was $5 billion appropriation for a tax credit program. And here's what that means for the average taxpayer. You could donate up to half your tax liability, your federal tax liability, to a scholarship granting organization. Now, that money would then fund scholarships for kids to use for educational expenses, which might include a private school tuition. And so you get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit. If you donate $5,000, you will get a $5,000 tax credit. And then that money can be used for a private school scholarship. Now, it's important for people to know that this budget reconciliation bill, it's very early in the process. The House is probably going to vote on it next week. Then it goes to the Senate and it comes back. And so things can change. We're looking at maybe July 4th, a nice patriotic date for a final sort of rundown of what this thing could look like when it gets to Trump or when Congress finally approves it. But hopefully that $5 billion is in there. Now, that's not guaranteed money. That does require tax credit-based donations, but it would allow, it'd be the first nationwide school choice program of its kind. But it's not too dissimilar to what some states right now have, tax credit-based scholarship programs like here in Missouri. It's just, it nationalizes it. And at $5,000 a scholarship, we don't know the amount at this point, that would equate to about 1 million children. And so for states that don't have state school choice, this would be a huge deal for those families.
Universal school choice is what those of us who advocate for school choice, true school choice, that is the ability to literally take the dollars that fund, every state spends, it varies, but I mean, some spend unbelievable sums of money per pupil in their states. A lot of blue states spend unbelievable sums of money, Josh, as we know. States like California, New York, the bluest of blue states always spend maybe the heaviest amount of money on per student education dollars, and the results, we all know the results. I mean, they're awful. The test scores are reading proficiency, math proficiency score, it just plunged. We spend more money and all the scores and testing plunges. So the idea of universal school choice is simply this: take those dollars, even a fraction of those dollars, and give them to families, and then allow families to take that money and go where they choose. And the reason I think a lot of blue state governors don't want to do that is, of course, school unions, teachers unions, oppose that model because they know that if they're dollar for dollar, head to head with Christian schools or home schools or others, they'll probably lose that money, Josh. That's why the opposition.
That's right. So much is spent on public education, and the teachers unions, as you say, they say we need more money. They claim that schools or public schooling is underfunded. But really what school choice does is it looks at it completely differently from more of a business perspective and asks, what are the outcomes for the dollars that we're spending? It's not a question of should we fund education. The question is, how should we fund it? And so school choice programs don't usurp public schools or their funding. And most programs, when they're passed, they even are very generous to public education. And when kids leave a public school and go to a private school and use school choice dollars, those public schools generally continue to get the funds in spite of the fact that they're no longer educating that child. And so those worries are overblown. And I think we do really need to look in the mirror, so to speak, to ask ourselves, why are schools failing? Why are test scores plunging? Why aren't these dollars being more effectively used? And when you look at the numbers, I mean, the administrative bloat in schools is astronomical. We hire more administrators than we do teachers for an enrollment that is actually declining demographically. You know, we have a baby bust right now. There will be, over the next in the foreseeable future, fewer children every year to educate, simply demographically. There's just fewer children than there once were in the United States in K-12 education. And so if we're spending more money and getting worse results and there are less kids being educated, that's not good. We need to shake it up. And a lot of business-oriented people are willing to do that.
Josh Mann is managing editor for a publication called The Lion, readlion.com. You have written about and profiled and talked about Linda McMahon and the Secretary of Education, the Department of Education. Trump has said he wants Linda McMahon to put herself out of a job. How's that proceeding? How's that going? And I am also really shocked, frankly, that I don't see the left attacking that concept like I thought they would. They seem almost okay with or resigned to the fact that most of the country's not particularly unhappy about a decentralized Department of Education.
That's right. And I think there's a lot of unknowns still about the department. How will it shut down? At what point will Congress take action to sort of make this happen? Because ultimately it will require Congress, or will the department just kind of shrink itself to just a very few things? And that's kind of the path they're on right now. But we had a chance to ask Linda McMahon a question. Our DC-based reporter Maggie Little was at an event put on by Cato. They interviewed the education secretary, and so you can read more about that. That story will go live today at readlion.com. But what McMahon has said is she's up for the task. She knows that Trump's goal is for her department to shut down eventually. But, you know, she's somebody who also has kind of a business background, who's coming in. She also loves kids, really cares about public education, but wants to ensure that the dollars the agency is spending is actually going to kids in classrooms and to where they're most needed, not to this bloated bureaucracy that it's pretty hard to track, pretty unaccountable in the past.
Josh, these stories, so many more. Like I said, the culture, court stories. You guys covered the Supreme Court there at readlion.com. And as these universal school choice bills continue to make their way through states like Texas, that's the biggest one, the most recent one, everyone who has kids in school, particularly public school, not attacking everyone in public school, just saying there are a lot of parents that would like options. And this is a growing snowball. It's gaining momentum, state after state after state, and you will read about stories like these and so many more at readlion.com. Managing Editor Josh Mann, thank you, my friend, for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
Quick break here on Open Line Friday. Come on in, 855 Stigall. What's on your mind? Sit tight. More in a minute. And talk to John. John, I'm sure glad you called. Good morning. Welcome in.
Hey, Chris. Great to talk with you this morning. Going to have a little fun on Friday, okay?
I'm ready. Fire away.
All right. Well, I am wondering, a little bit of your speech pattern tells your ancestry, I think. I would think that maybe your two grandfathers were Robert Preston of Music Man fame and Johnny Carson of The Tonight Show. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Some sort of hybrid made in the lab. I don't know. So that's what you hear, Robert. I have to go back and refresh my Robert Preston knowledge. I don't know that I know how he sounds. I do know a little bit about Carson. That's intriguing. That's what you hear, huh?
Yeah, I hear in your regular stuff, Johnny Carson kind of speech pattern sometimes comes out. And if you elongate some of your words, then it ends up sounding a little bit like Robert Preston has some fun on Music Man. So there you go. That's pretty good pedigree there.
Well, it is. My follow-up question was, does it annoy you or you like it? That's my next question.
No, I like it. It's just like, oh, there's Johnny. And, you know. That works great.
Well, listen, John, I'm glad to hear from you. John, are you a Harumph Society member by chance?
Well, no, I'm not, although I've heard great things about it over the last few months.
Well, I would like to. You made my day. We've had a long week around here. It's always nice to hear kind guys. I want a nice guy in the Harumph Society as a complimentary membership. Do you mind if I give you one?
Oh, that is very kind of you. I will certainly take that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Hang on the line. We're going to get your email. Fast Eddie will take your email address down. You are in the Harumph Society as a complimentary membership for the entire year. Thank you, my friend, very, very much. Let's go to Randy in Knoxville, Tennessee, I believe. Randy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Yeah, Robert Preston, Big Trouble in River City. That's a good comparison.
I got to go back and refresh my memory on how he sounds. I've seen it. I just don't remember. Yeah.
Do your kids walk around using words like swell? Yeah, that was the big problem in America 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Give me happy days again.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't really have the happy thing. I was just thinking, you bringing up this Comey thing, Chris, maybe it'd be helpful for people that might not be completely in the know to point out the past of James Comey and the scumbag way that he worked as the former director of the FBI. He said, I took extensive notes detailing inappropriate behavior by President Trump when I was in the Oval Office. He was trying to pressure my investigations. He came out, Chris, I know you know this, said, we're not going to charge Hillary Clinton with all these classified documents in her bathroom. And
that's right. She didn't intend to, he said. She didn't intend to commit these crimes.
Yeah, and then Trump left him stranded, said, get your own airplane ride back from L.A., clown, you're fired. So, which I thought was hilarious, and it was really great. But just to show how awful this guy is, he was going after Mike Flynn, the former security advisor for Trump, and he just made all this stuff up, saying, I took notes detailing all this stuff. It just to go over.
He's a scumbag. I mean, lurking in the curtains, framing people. He would gaslight people into thinking they were having friendly interviews, coming on board like Mike Flynn, and really it was just to set up a trap to try to implicate people. The FISA warrant abuse alone is disgusting. The fact that he helped usher in the spying, surveilling of American citizens, disgusting. So the spelling out of shells, just quickly, Randy, you want to see this guy in cuffs? What should happen here?
Oh, absolutely. That's threatening the President of the United States. And it's like you say, Chris, a two-tier system of justice. The blindfolds off Lady Liberty. If I did that, some house painter from Knoxville, Tennessee, they'd have me under the jail. Lord knows.
You're not kidding, Randy. If you spelled that out in shells on your vacation while the Husk was president, you wouldn't be talking to me today. This is the Stigall Show. I want to welcome aboard the show our new sponsors at Texas Bullion Exchange. Great guys. If you go to buytexasgold.com, you will see my smiling mug right there at the top of the page. Since leaving the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has lost over 90% of its purchase power. Now, if you think about that, what used to cost $1 now takes $10 or more. That's pretty stunning. And if you think about gold, on the other hand, it's held strong. It's increased over 7,000%, as a matter of fact, in that very same window of time. So if you're holding a bunch of savings in cash, that's losing buying power by the day. Texas Bullion Exchange wants to help you diversify a portion of that wealth right now, roll over maybe an existing part of your IRA or the entire thing into physical gold and silver. And right now, for every $1,000 you diversify in gold with Texas Bullion Exchange, you'll get a free ounce of silver. Claim that free silver and learn more. That website again is buytexasgold.com. Be sure and mention my name, Chris, when you reach out to them, buytexasgold.com. Here's their number, okay? 855-839-2728. At Texas Bullion Exchange, the focus is on helping you preserve what you've worked so hard to build. Protect that wealth. Keep it safe from inflation. Tangible assets like gold and silver, not paper promises. That's what they can do for you. BuyTexasGold.com or call 855-839-2728. Be sure you mention Chris when you give them a ring. Hey, there's Chris Stigall. You know, this past summer, I went on a cruise with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Mike Gallagher, my Salem radio colleagues, and I met so many listeners like you who have been on my PhD weight loss program journeys, and I decided for myself it was time to jump in. I wanted to give this Dr. Ashley everybody's been talking about call myself. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team customize plans for your body to make weight loss simple, and they provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your whole person, and so I've decided to join so many of you. Join Sebastian Gorka, join Mike Gallagher, and all the weight they've lost, I'd like to do it myself. I've decided to call up my PhD weight loss. I hope you'll join me. Maybe we can start this weight loss journey together. Reach out, get started, tell them I sent you and said hi. I'd love to hear how you're doing at 864-664-1900. That's 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Don't forget to tell them Chris Stigall is going to start losing weight with you. Well, good morning, and I welcome you in on this Friday edition of the Stigall Show. Open Line Friday round here. You can call us, talk about whatever you want. I keep that tradition alive just like Rush used to do on Friday. It does not have to be anything I'm talking about, all right? If you've been waiting this week, you've wanted to get in something I didn't touch on that you really want to talk about, today's your day. 855-STIGALL is how you reach me. 855-784-4255. Follow along at chrisstigall.com for emails if you want to send me some, which I actually have a stack of emails. I'm going to do a little mailbag today, too, in conjunction with Open Line Friday. You can follow social media, listen to my podcast, where I hope if you don't follow the Chris Stigall Show podcast, subscribe to that wherever you listen to podcasts, but you can listen to it straight off the website, chrisstigall.com. And my newsletter's out today, another edition of the Harumph Society. Whew, it's been a busy week. Flew to Dallas. Headed off to Jefferson City yesterday. Did an interesting sit-down interview with the governor of Missouri. He is one of the newly elected red state governors. Mike Keogh is his name, and he's interesting to me because he also comes from small business. He owned his own, I guess still owns, his own Ford dealership in Missouri. And so it occurred to me that this would be a fantastic guy to talk about the Trump agenda, tariffs, and his new agenda, and what being a newly elected Republican governor in this environment is all about, what they're trying to achieve in Missouri. So enjoy a little of this conversation. It's a long one. I did about a half an hour. I'll let you hear some of it. We're going to put the full interview, for those of you that are curious about it, up on our YouTube channel a little later. But here's some of my conversation with Mike Keogh from his office in Jefferson City yesterday. Take a listen.
Governor, thanks a lot for having us today, sir. What a beautiful office.
I am very humbled and blessed to be able to have this office. Many governors before me have been here, and when you think about that, when you walk into this beautiful building every day, it really still gives me goosebumps.
That was actually what I was thinking as we were looking around this office today. I can't imagine it. Born in Missouri myself. I know you were too. You told me how you grew up not far from this place. Did you imagine it when you were a young man that you'd be sitting in the governor's office?
No, the farthest thing from my side. Actually, you know, my early childhood, I was in inner city St. Louis, and I didn't know what Jefferson City was or what a state capital was or what government was. And so I'm sure nobody in my 8th grade yearbook wrote that Mike Keogh might be governor someday. But so it is really a humbling job, especially when you think about the people who came before you. And then you kind of reflect emotionally how hard you worked to get to this place and all the people that helped you across the state. This is not an office you get to just, you know, hanging out by yourself. You need a lot of help. And so I try to remember that every day.
What is that to think of an entire state? You're talking about lots and lots of counties, which you have crisscrossed and campaigned in and shaken a lot of hands. I guess you have to be mindful of that. Geographically, here you sit in the Capitol building, but you've got to think of every single county.
Yeah, I really like getting out and about. That's where my strengths are. I mean, this is a beautiful office. It's a beautiful place. I very much have enjoyed working with the leadership in this first session for me as governor. But I'm chomping at the bit to hit the road again because I'm best when I'm out with Missourians. And I really, really like going out and seeing what they are faced with, their challenges, their successes, quite frankly, their families, their churches. I really enjoy getting around Missouri to see what Missourians are doing.
I'd ask you, if I could, just a personal note, as I was looking around your office a bit, it tells us a lot how they decorate, how one decorates their office. And I couldn't help but notice you've got the cross displayed, you've got some Bibles displayed behind us. And I saw on your X post reference to Pope Leo, the new pope in your faith. I don't know how many Catholic governors there have been in Missouri, but probably not many.
Well, I'm the first Catholic Republican governor. I'm the second Catholic governor. Joe Teasdale was the first Catholic governor. And so Pope Leo is very exciting for our faith. My name is Michael Leo Kehoe.
No
so
kidding.
I might, with press, I might just start using the name Leo to see how that goes. My mom had great fortitude 63 years ago to name me after a pope well after she was gone. My mother was a daily communicant. She went to church every morning at 6 a.m. The Blessed Mother, which is big in the Catholic faith, which sits on my desk behind me, was a gift from my mother to have somebody to watch over me.
Wow, that is stirring. That means a lot to you, obviously.
Oh, it's huge. The faith is who our family is. I mean, you don't get to these offices, no matter which level of government you get into, without a strong faith background. Whatever that faith background may be, that really is divine to be able to meet people, get elected, and then actually have some sort of compass as you govern. Because there's very few decisions that you make in this office that everybody agrees with. There's a total of none. So making sure that you have something that you can really believe on in faith. And my mom's favorite thing to tell us all the time in prayer was always about, would never pray for what you want, pray for the right thing to happen. And so I said that prayer many times this week. So
I bet you did. In fact, while we talk about the Pope, happens to be an American Pope from Chicago. Do you imagine that you'd ever get an audience with this Pope? Now that you're governor, you can maybe swing some connections a little bit. Huh?
Somehow I got to make that happen to answer your question. But my wife is actually from outside of Chicago. My wife, Claudia, grew up outside a small town in Joliet, Illinois. But I have a lot of friends of friends of friends who know him now. See,
really?
That's kind of the small world thing that happens here in the United States and certainly among Catholic circles, even though there's over a billion Catholics worldwide. Our bishop, who is a very good friend of ours, who's about to be the Archbishop of Kansas City, Kansas, was actually in the Vatican and in Rome for the retreat when all this was happening. And so he ended up doing a lot of interviews. He actually knew Cardinal Prevost very well. And so now the Pope Leo the 14th. So to answer your question, I'm going to figure that out sometime.
Do you want it to be here on your turf, or would you prefer to go to the Vatican?
The Vatican's a beautiful place. Okay. I've been to the Vatican. I mean, we'd be welcome. I would love to have him as a guest in Missouri, to answer your question.
Has a Pope visited Missouri before? I don't know the history on that.
Pope John Paul has, who is a very famous Pope, very popular Pope.
Yes.
I think 3 popes ago was John Paul, and he would have been here probably in the 2008-ish range, somewhere in there. I know my mother went and saw him when he was in St. Louis. But yes, he will be extended an invitation to come to Missouri, knowing that the Pope's schedule is probably just a little bit cramped.
I bet.
I'm willing to go to him.
Very gracious of you. Yes. Also, your background, when you and I talked last, you were still running for this office, and one thing I know about you is you bring business acumen to this office. It's interesting, as we're having now this national discussion about tariffs and the economy broadly. And again, I know you're the governor and you're talking about a state economy, but it matters to your economy. It matters to your business. I mean, you have been in auto sales for a great long time. What does this discussion about tariffs mean to you as governor, as a business person privately, as the citizens of your state?
Well, let me just say, 35 years in small business, so I'm always going to be a small business guy. I love representing business. I love being the voice for business here in the state capitol. And we have many House and Senate members, by the way, who are great business people as well, that also help me with that voice of small business. It's what makes our economy go. I am 100% in America finally getting a better deal than what we've been getting. We've been getting kind of kicked in the shins for a long time on some of these trade deals. And I'm very much in favor of President Trump's proposal to try to bring people to the table. And guess what? We're seeing it working. He has really delivered a lot for our country and got people to reinvest here. I know that he starts from a place that makes people nervous, and maybe the market's nervous, et cetera, but he's starting in a place to bring people to the table. And I think that process has worked. And as a businessman, yes, we get nervous because it affects the price of just about any good you can sell or that you can buy. But at the end of the day, I think a small little short-term nervousness will result in a long-term gain for our country.
Yeah, that's just a little bit of my conversation with Governor Mike Kehoe, the newly elected governor of Missouri. That was a real honor. I don't think I've ever sat in a governor's office before and conducted an interview until yesterday. He's a funny guy. He's a personable guy. A couple of hilarious stories about his visits to the White House and what he said to Trump. I spent about a half an hour with him in his office yesterday. It's a very, very funny story. I asked him specifically about the governor's luncheon. What was that, like the first month, a couple of weeks Trump was in office? Remember when the Maine governor popped off Fast Eddie? And Trump said, yeah, well, I'll see you in court. Remember that awkward, uncomfortable moment between all the governors sitting there?
How could I forget? Janet Mills.
And he was, and I asked Keogh, I said, was that as uncomfortable as it looked? And he said, thankfully I wasn't there. He said, I called the president and said, I'm sorry, I can't make the lunch. My first grandbaby's being born. So he missed out on that discomfort. He called that his favorite day of the whole year. Not being inaugurated as the 58th governor of Missouri, but his favorite day this year has been the birth of his grandson. But some funny stories, some very, very interesting challenges for him as he's talking about expanding school choice in the state of Missouri. Governors are where it's at. I would like to spend more I've spent an extensive amount of time with Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, now Governor Kehoe. I think we're going to be talking with Governor Kim Reynolds in the near future. I hope Governor Stitt. I love talking with good governors because that's where the action is. People are moving all over the country. People are heading to red states like Florida and Tennessee because of good governance. And these are the people that are, we talk a lot about Trump, but these are the people on the ground in your respective states that we all ought to get to know better. Mike Keogh and the team there in Jefferson City, thanks for welcoming us. I'm going to have that full conversation up on my YouTube channel today, all right, if you look for Chris Stigall Show on YouTube. Open Line Friday rolls on, some mailbag, and we're going to talk Trump's trip to the Middle East coming up. Beautiful shot of what I think is the pier. Forgive me for not knowing my Southern California geography there either. Oh, Santa Monica Pier. That's exactly what I thought it was, but I wasn't quite sure I could pinpoint it in the darkness. You guys out in California still. Thanks for getting up early. If in fact you listen in the middle of the night on KRLA 870 AM, live shot of the Santa Monica Pier. Thank you, gentlemen, at the Salem News Channel. Beautiful looking shot. Get the app so you can take it along and watch and listen wherever you go. Salem News Channel app is free, and you can click Watch Live, which is super easy to do, and listen to us wherever you go. The podcast's available, the Harumph Society, my email, social media, it's all at chrisstigall.com. It's Open Line Friday. You guys have been patient on the lines. Let's go to California, as a matter of fact, out there in the middle of the night. Mike, what are you doing up at this hour anyway? I joke all the time with my California friends. If they're listening to me, I'm curious to know what they're doing at this hour of the day.
Oh wow! I woke up early and heard part of the interview that you had with this really great educational person.
Yeah, you're talking about Josh Mann over there at the Lion. So you wake up early. That's my question. Are you an early riser naturally, or you need Z Factor because you don't sleep well?
Well, I get up pretty early. Sometimes I've heard your show starting at 3. So,
Nelly, Mike, you deserve commendation. That's impressive. Anybody that joins the show at 3 a.m. voluntarily, my hat's off to you, my friend. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And not why you called, by the way. What's on your mind, anyhow?
Well, because of him, I had something else to say, but I'll say this instead. Years and years ago, back when California education was about halfway as high as the rest of the nation, I substituted for this really great photo teacher who was a fantastic program. And anyway, so he got me hired because he retired, and it was a fantastic. I won't even get into the fantasticness. Great students and everything like that. Happy, productive, all A's practically. Anyway, they all came in at noon and talked because I always like the kids coming in and stuff like that. And this one wonderful young lady, foreign exchange student from Sweden, at the end of the year, I kind of talked with her a little bit. I never tried to butt into the kids. But she said that everything was great, great school. I didn't learn a thing because we did all this stuff 4 years ago in Sweden. So.
Oh, I see what you're picking. I see what you're putting down there, Mike. Yeah, thank you for the call. I get it. Sweden and European countries, you find that time and again. And listen, I don't mean to besmirch everyone in public school. I always have to say, caveat. My wife was a public school teacher. My mother was a public school teacher. I'm the product of public schools. I have many friends who are still public school teachers. But to Mike's point, and this is just true, and you see it time and again, when kids are taken out of public schools these days and put into, say, a private Christian school where the standards are much higher, you realize quickly what they're not learning. And to Mike's point, in Europe, they come over here and they're like, I can't believe this is what you're teaching. We did this stuff like 4 years ago. It's just... The standards are less in public school, just broadly speaking. That doesn't mean everybody associated with public school is bad or a low standard or of low quality, but it's demonstrably true. There is no arguing with the data and the stats. Thank you, Mike, for the call. Let's go to Bill in Indiana. Bill, I'm glad you called. What's on your mind this morning? Hi.
Well, thank you for taking my call. Under the previous administration, the Democrats spent tons of taxpayer dollars on illegal aliens, flying them over here, putting them up in hotels and all that. I believe that the Democrats did that illegally, and I think they owe the taxpayers a bunch of money. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Bill. That's Bill in Indiana. I appreciate you. Our telephone number, again, 855-STIGAL on Open Line Friday. Still to come, Gabriel Nerona, who is fantastic. He's the executive director of Polaris National Security. He has been following closely the developments of President Trump's travels through the Middle East. Does he share my assessment, ultimately, what it means that this is a massive historical break with United States foreign policy, and what does it mean going forward? And does he have the heartburn that seemingly some conservatives say they have over Trump's dealing with Syria? I'm reading some nattering nabob types who don't like it. What does Gabriel Nerona, who knows national security better than most, what does he think about it? That's on the way.
Jennifer, I'm sure that you saw that last night. I shook more hands than any human being is capable of doing. That was a long deal, and they were big people. But they were starving for love, because our country didn't give them love. They gave him a fist bump. Remember the fist bump in Saudi Arabia? He travels all the way to Saudi Arabia in that case, and he gives them a fist bump. That's not what they want. They don't want a fist bump. They want to shake his hand.
Handshakes and love. That was Trump summarizing his trip through the Middle East. What an interesting, game-changing, history-making week. It's not getting nearly the attention it should. Unfortunately, our lunatic former director of the FBI spelling that he wants to murder the president in code with seashells is stealing the limelight right now. Really, what should be getting the attention it's due is Trump's trip to the Middle East. And so I thought it a good opportunity to bring in an old friend of the show, Gabriel Nerona, executive director of Polaris National Security. He also spent time in the State Department handling specifically communications and congressional affairs with Iran and other issues. And Gabriel, first of all, good morning. Welcome in.
Hey, Chris. Good morning. Great to see you.
Thank you. The week started with the New York Times lamenting, and I thought it's so funny. You know, Trump's going over there to do business deals. Ugh. Like they really derisively, like doing business with these people was the worst thing he could possibly do. And you just heard him there. They want love. They want respect. They want to do business. This is a new kind of diplomacy. In decades, we've not seen this, Gabriel.
You know, the key phrase is commerce, not chaos. And the only way you stop chaos, the only way you stop the cycle of violence, of terrorism, of governments being overthrown is you build their economy. You allow them to have jobs. And in the process, you're going to bring millions of jobs to the United States. What we've seen is now a $600 billion trade commitment from Saudi Arabia. We've seen a 1.2 trillion trade commitment from Qatar. We'll see if that pans out. And $1 trillion from United Arab Emirates. Those are jobs going to Americans. That is the quintessential ideology behind America First. It's putting Americans who are looking for jobs first, Americans who don't want to have to go overseas to fight foreign wars first. And this does it. So the New York Times can complain all they want, but this is what is best for Americans.
And if I'm to be truthful and somewhat fair, I'm not sure the Wall Street Journal are big fans of Trump's either, but I think most of them are never Trumpers. Here's their headline today. He calls them handsome, attractive, tough. Trump's bromance with Arab leaders. Now, I haven't read the entire piece from Alexander Ward, but my guess is, again, there's this hint of derision, like these guys aren't worthy of Trump's respect. We need to talk sanctions. We need to keep our distance. We need to threat. We need the lecture. We certainly don't need to go over and have bromances and shake hands and be treated to ceremonial, welcomes and things like that. And the displays, by the way, Gabriel, I mean, it was like all these nations he was visiting, it was like they were all, jockeying and competing with one another. Who can do the most opulent display of welcome and appreciation for Trump, right?
It reminds me a little bit of children vying for their father's love and affection. Which I find rather interesting. This is a little bit how the Arabs do. They love to have this shows of diplomacy. But you know what? I hear from so many friends in the Middle East, they say Donald Trump is the first president that speaks Arabic. He understands how the region thinks, how they talk, how they do business. And that's why they're respecting him. That's why they are all trying to get him to come to their country, trying to have their businessmen meet with Trump, meet with our officials. Again, this is the best problem to have. What we used to bring in the Obama era and in the Biden era was lectures. And now what we're doing is we're bringing CEOs, we're bringing business deals. That is what they wanted. They weren't going to listen to our lectures anyways. And so this is a much better approach to strengthen relationships, to ensure that they want to work with us, they want to give us concessions when they need to, is saying, hey, this is a transactional. We're here to help you, though. We have something to offer besides sort of failed models of ideology that don't work in the Middle East.
Gabriel Noronha, Executive Director of Polaris National Security, with us at GL Noronha. That's Noronh on X, if you want to follow him there, at GL Noronha. Worked in State Department for a time, and so what does it mean when Rubio, here's the headline today from Axios, Rubio meets Syrian counterpart in latest step toward normalizing relations? I am hearing from some conservative factions displeasure with the, quote, normalization of relations with Syria. How should we read that? And by the way, let's talk about Marco Rubio for a minute, who I've heard some people say, what a shift in this guy. What happened to him? He used to be so much smarter or whatever because he's too Trumpy now. So talk to us about all of that.
Well, first, I think when you get into an administration and you actually start seeing all the intel and things from the inside, your views always shift. Mine certainly did when I went into the administration from the Senate. And that's what happens with a lot of people is you see that the world's a bit more complicated. Syria is perhaps one of the most complicated countries. And look, I think there is truth in what some of the critics say that, look, this guy al-Shara, he's an ISIS guy, he's an al-Qaeda guy. We shouldn't trust him. I agree. On the other side, Syria is the potential breeding ground for the next ISIS and the next al-Qaeda. And the way we stop that is to help Syria rebuild. My concern is that if we don't do anything with Syria, that the Russians and the Chinese, the Iranians will go straight back in and fill that vacuum. Now, I think there's going to be some very smart conversations in the administration of what are the actual conditions for each particular sanction we're going to lift. I think when President Trump says we're going to lift the sanctions, that can mean lots of things. That can mean the first step is going forward, and then all the other steps will require certain conditions. So I think some of the critics are being a little premature and say, no, this is the end of the world. We'll see. I think the Treasury Department is going to have a very smart process to do this in a careful and safe way while preserving our ability to actually access and influence what's happening in Syria.
Gabriel, you mentioned China, and it's interesting. I hadn't considered it because I just don't think this way, but maybe you well had. That this trip, while ingratiating himself to certain nations in the Middle East, it also, I heard someone explain it this way, boxes out China at a time China's really under duress with this trade stuff, that there is kind of a bank shot benefit to this trip in maybe poking China a little bit. Explain.
Yeah, so I think what I hear from the Arab leaders when I go over there is they say, look, we would love to have you, the United States, be our partner of choice. But if you're not willing to go by our conditions, we've got another suitor on the sidelines, and we're willing to go there, but you're our first choice. Essentially, put a ring on it, or I'm going elsewhere. And what we've done now is this trip is sort of putting the ring on it with the Middle East. And so China is now going to be boxed out. They're not going to get those business deals. Their Chinese state-owned enterprises aren't going to go and get the AI contracts. They're not going to do the tech work that the United States is now going to do. They can still have a lot of influence. They can still do a lot. But by us leaning in, it makes their work a lot more difficult. And we're scooping up the easy deals, and they have to sort of scrounge around. I think with China's economy where it is right now, they're in a little desperate place.
Let's go to 2064, Paulie, if we could, please. Cut 2064. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma. A lot of Republicans and Trump officials being badgered about this plane, this gift of a plane from Qatar. I'd love to get your response to it, but here's a little of the senator from Oklahoma tackling the question with a member of the media yesterday. I thought you'd enjoy it. Take a listen.
The United States take a 747, but here's what's interesting to me. What the media isn't telling you, what no one's talking to you about, is this same 747 has been in negotiations for a year. The Biden administration is the one that started these conversations. It didn't start underneath the Trump administration. Why? Because we need a backup for Air Force One. Because right now the president of the United States is flying around on a 40-year-old plane, and there is no backup for it. The backup we had, the airframe started having structural issues. No one's discussing that part. They're just discussing that the deal ended with President Trump. Maybe the media doesn't know. Maybe I'll give them a pass. Maybe you didn't know. I'll give you the pass. I'll give you a pass on that one. But the fact is, this conversation started with Qatar.
Yeah, and he was asked a little later about, well, don't you have security concerns? What if it's bugged? He goes, don't you understand how we do this? You don't think we're not going to strip the whole plane down and rebuild it? Like, this isn't our first rodeo. Anyway, could you comment broadly on this, Gabriel? Do you have problems with Qatar giving this plane to Trump?
Look, so talking about Qatar, they play both sides. We all know that they are doing what most small countries do who are in the Middle East. They talk to everyone. They do deals with everyone. They're good sometimes. They're bad sometimes. That's just the Middle East. What you just said, though, we're going to strip it down. We're going to make sure there's not bugs. We're going to take adequate and safety precautions. We should do that. But the issue is, look, we haven't been able to get a replacement Air Force One. And the new model is years and years away still. And who knows our track record whether it delivers on time. So I think you're right. We use this as an interim solution, not as a permanent one. We do our security checks. And at the end of the day, hopefully we'll save a lot of money in the process. And I think that's a good deal when we do adequate safety precautions.
And one last thing, Gabriel. These trips, how beneficial are they for Israel? There was a lot made going in. Trump's not stopping in Israel first. Israel's being left out in the cold. What is this? First of all, I just don't believe that's true. I'm certain Israel was aware of what they're doing and what his goals are. Are they part of this? And it seems to me, certainly through the Abraham Accords in his first term, we were getting very, very close to Saudi Arabia, for instance, doing real, meaningful commerce and business with Israel. I think that's why October 7th happened, in my opinion, with Hamas. Iran has not wanted to see that happen. Is part of this discussion normalizing relations and trade with Israel too, do you suppose?
It is, and what I tell my friends in Israel is you should listen to the president's speech in Riyadh where he says, what would make me personally happy is to see Saudi Arabia make peace with Israel. That is the kind of statement which alone is worth more than a trip in certain cases. Every country in the world would love to get the attention and the policy deliverables that Israel got on this trip, even though Israel wasn't even a destination. So look, the president's got a busy schedule. He'll be to Israel. He'll come there. The Trump administration works day and night to support Israel to try to get hostages out to improve their security. So no, what I would tell my friends in Israel is, don't worry. This doesn't speak to where the United States is on the Israeli relationship. We're going to deliver. We're going to deliver peace. We're going to deliver security in the region. We're going to strengthen your Arab neighbors so that they can resist Iranian influence. And all of that is going to make Israel more peaceful and more prosperous.
That's just it. It's like you're trying to get the Arab world to resist the wackos. We want to do business with you. We want to make you rich, but you got to resist the wackos. That's all. It's that simple. That's what he's trying to do.
100%. You know, the greatest thing that could the worst thing that could happen in the Middle East is an Iranian nuclear weapon. The second worst thing is that the Arab governments in the Middle East who are moderate, who are working with us, are overthrown by radical clerics in their own country. And we get back to where we were 20 years ago with people that want to kill us and want to kill Israel.
Gabriel, got to run. Thank you for your time, my friend. More Stigall Show in a minute. Good morning, Washington, D.C. Thanks for listening in our nation's capital, 570 WWRC. Grateful to have you driving in today, maybe listening, watching on the Salem News Channel. A beautiful shot of the White House today. Trump on his way back. Just got this in. Brett Baer is traveling with the presidential crew over there in the Middle East. He got a sit-down interview with him, and overnight, the news, of course, of James Comey, the former director of the FBI, spelling out 8647 on the beach, posting it on a social media, then taking it down and saying, oh, gosh, I had no idea 86 meant kill. I took it down immediately because I had no idea. So Brett Baer asked Trump about this, and I guess this interview is coming a little later this afternoon or this evening on Fox, but here it is. Take a listen.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing, and when you add his history to that. If he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
There you go. That's President Trump's response. He's going to let Pam handle it. Fast Eddie, do you like it when he says, I'm going to let Pam handle it? I know people, we've talked about this a lot, they're getting impatient. With Attorney General Bondi.
No, I don't like when he says that because I think she's going to go to Fox News to respond at least 4 times over the weekend, and we'll come to find that she will absolutely do nothing to James Comey by this time next week. So sorry. No, I don't like that.
We'll keep no, that's all right. I think a lot of people share that point of view. We will wait and see. He says he trusts Pam. He likes Pam. He's going to let Pam handle it. We'll wait for Pam's guidance. RFK Jr. wanted to hit this before we close the door this week. First of all, new allegations about the timing of the Pfizer COVID shot have been passed to the House panel. Lawmakers are investigating whether Pfizer waited to share results of the COVID shot in 2020 until after the presidential election, based on new allegations that a former Pfizer scientist had said he was part of an effort to, quote, deliberately slow down the testing. The House panel is seeking information from Pfizer and from this particular scientist, a guy called Dormitzer. After learning he allegedly told colleagues in 2024 at a subsequent job he was worried he would face an investigation of his role in the shot's release and asked to be relocated to Canada. Holy crap. A Pfizer scientist said, I think I'm going to go to Canada because I'm afraid of what they're going to find out they asked me to do at Pfizer. Which brings me to this news from the Wall Street Journal. RFK Jr.'s HHS is going to stop recommending routine COVID shots for children and pregnant women. Now, they keep calling this a vaccine. It is not a vaccine. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it unicorn juice if that's what you want to call it, but stop using the word vaccine. Vaccine implies efficacy. Vaccine implies keeping a disease at bay. It doesn't. It never did. It's not. It's making people sicker. It did nothing to keep the COVID virus at bay. Nothing. The Trump administration is planning to drop recommendations that pregnant women, teens, and kids get this stupid COVID shot, which, full disclosure, your host never took, and was going to lose his job at one point from Joe Biden's Labor Department because I refused the damn thing. One of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my life, as far as I'm concerned. Not that you're a bad person if you did it out of guilt or shame or pressure or whatever you were feeling at the time. I get it. One of the darkest chapters of our history. Not the Trump era, that. All right, let me get to a couple of emails, too, because I've got this stack and it's starting to pile up, and if I don't, I got the nicest email today from someone watching on the Salem News Channel. I thought this was so cool. In Okinawa, Japan. David says, Chris, I'm a retired military guy residing in Okinawa. So much, I enjoyed listening to you so much. It makes me miss Rush from the very beginning. One day I got a Samsung TV. I plugged it in, and voila. There you were as I was flipping through news channels. Came to you. I'll never change channels again. You're interesting. Always bring your point of view. Love your interview with the Missouri governor today. I'm impressed by him and will definitely follow him. You make my day. You come on strong. I love your show. The banner with Fast Eddie. I also want to adopt a dog and maybe even name him Dean. That's apparently how nuts he is about us. Dave, thank you for watching your Samsung Plus television and Salem News Channel in Okinawa, Japan. And thanks for your service to the country. God bless you. Marcia in Houston said, Chris, on Sunday mornings I usually listen to Hugh Hewitt's Town Hall Review, but today you weren't there. I'm not sure who the host on the show was. It's Tony Perkins. Yeah, we've got a new show called This Week on Capitol Hill. It is Tony Perkins. She thinks I sound like Tony Perkins, Marcia did. Everybody thinks I sound like someone else. Maybe they sound like me, Marcia. Thank you for listening. Tyler is listening. He said, I was sad when Hugh Hewitt changed times. I didn't think anyone would be as interesting. Thankfully, you've proven me wrong. Keep up the great work. That's from Tyler, listening in Denver. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of the show. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next right here. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.